Okay, seems like we are live. Let me test this with a quick message. Form for your feedback. For your feedback. I'm still going to try some of these things live. Seems like so. It's 9:29. Perhaps we wait another minute or so before we start. But today I have some toys. I have my favorite Lego blocks. There's a phone. There's another red block for those that tuned in a little bit early. First of all, good morning. Very good morning from Sydney. As you can tell from my voice, hopefully you can hear me. I am not that awake, but hopefully we'll fix that in the course of this workshop. And so why are we here again? If you tuned in well, it was 3 weeks ago, we covered the why, we're doing this. So why is it that it's Saturday morning and instead of being in bed at 9:30 a.m., I'm here talking to you about Notion. And the reason is very simple, actually, is that I have been struggling with my notes and my content for a really long time, and for a long time I thought that that was it, right? That there was no way to really fix the problem. That I had to deal with this complexity and sort of accept it, right? But it was stressful because I wanted to do more. I had so many ideas. I wanted to do stuff with those ideas and follow up and learn and apply my knowledge on different areas. But I couldn't do it because I didn't have a really a way to track to essentially offload my brain. I was getting overwhelmed with books and podcasts and notes and I thought it would be nice to have a second brain. How many times I said that? If you are in all of the people I hang out with, I'm sure they heard the sentence multiple times. If only I need a second brain. I need to do like take some of that pressure off of my biological substrate and put it on a computer. But computers are dumb, and that's the reality up until now. And perhaps it might change in the future, but for today, today is the 27th of November 2021. Most laptops, most computers are pretty dumb. I think it's fair to say that, and so there is this disconnect between how we think, the human intelligence, the way that we can process information, and the way that computers are structured, the way that the computers make us interact with information. But I mean, I think it's enough talking about it because these are pretty abstract concepts, which is why I'm doing this workshop. So I really want to crystallize these high level ideas into practical tips. How can you build a system that is intuitive, that you use, that you want to use, that is fun to use, and that allows you to release some of that pressure and offload it from your brain to your computer systems. Now, it's a big statement, and I'm aware of that, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it's possible, and I've been doing that for the last year, building systems to manage my podcast and my business, and a bunch of other side projects that I'm working on. So my hope is that you will find that useful too. You're not going to be able to copy paste everything I do, and there will be no point in doing that anyways. But hopefully this will give you a sense of what is it that new platforms like Notion allow you to do. And it's up to you then to judge, whether this is worth your time or not. But I think there's no better way to start than actually giving you a really high-level overview of what this is all about. And I'm going to show you my podcast to start. What the podcast management system looks like from a 30,000 feet view. We're not going to dive into details, but hopefully we'll give you an idea. So before we do that, though, let me know where you're streaming from. There is a chat live. I'm gonna keep an eye on the YouTube side of things. I don't know if you can see my first message, but I did share a link to a Notion form. It's something like notionforms.io in the live stream. Can anyone see that? Can you drop a comment in there if you see it? And if you don't, we'll try to troubleshoot it. But that link is a form that connects to my Notion system, and it's a quick way for you to input your feedback as we go live today. If there's anything that you think, oh man, this is completely, it's pointless, I'm not understanding this, put a note there and let me know. It's a way for me to get your feedback and course correct, perhaps if not live, at least the next time we go live, which hopefully will be not in another 3 weeks. But I'm not gonna promise this, because last time I said in a week time and it took 3. It's really a way for me to course correct and improve this, hopefully. So let me know where you're streaming from. Let's go and now check out the podcast system that I built, just to give you a super quick idea and see if we can do that easily from here. I will have to start sharing my screen first of all. It would help. And there you go. Right, so let me see whether we can jump directly to my projects and control center, and then my podcast project. I'm gonna make this full screen. Right, so what you're seeing right here is basically a home page. Is a Notion page. If you've never seen Notion, well, this is it. I'm using the dark background, but for no reason, I mean, it's just my personal preference. You can use the white background as well. I know that dark looks sometimes a bit intimidating, but when you spend a lot of time staring at your screen, every photon counts, and so we try to make it as high contrast and eye-friendly as possible. Pun not intended. So what is it like? We've got a page. There's a logo that you can change. You can add the banner at the top, and then there's a bunch of text here, right? Now let's completely skip this part because we'll go through. I'll explain to you in a moment where this is coming from. But other than that, it's just a page, like any other page, except it has been designed. So there are columns, there are toggles you can put in and out and expand. There are links to other page. This is, for example, is the wiki to the podcast, which is another Notion page linked from the original page. And where I have a whole bunch of resources, my templates for the podcast, the stuff that I use internally. But then if you scroll down, there's I created a bunch of sections. One is called content, one LinkedIn content. Inside my content, there's a toggle. And again, all of these are the blocks of your Lego system, right? So we'll get to in a moment how to put these blocks together and how to activate one and then get a whole bunch of blocks underneath. But that's sort of we'll get into it in due time. All I wanted to show you is a really high level idea of what's possible. What's the problem I'm trying to solve here with the podcast is track all the work that needs to be done for each episode and track all the episodes as a function of time and basically be on top of the project. So it's mainly a project management type of need. And what I'm leveraging here is the timeline view in Notion. So if many of these things sound completely gibberish, you don't know what I'm talking about, that's all fine. The purpose of this first 10 minutes is not to understand how it works, but is to get a feel for what you can do. When I showed this to a mate of mine recently, he said, I didn't know anything about Notion, we didn't start talking about it. He looked at my screen and said, what's the operating system you're using? Right? That got me to think, because it is indeed an operating system. What you're looking at is a piece of software, essentially, right? What can you do with this thing? Well, you can move the arrow time, and you can see over time all the episodes that I published in June, July, August, September. But then you can click on these episodes. For example, this one with Ben Jones from dataliteracy.com. You can click on that item, and it will pop up a whole bunch of metadata for that episode. So the stuff that you're seeing right here is a page in Notion that is connected, and we'll get to in a moment, because today, one of the things we need to do today is to study relations. But to give you a quick insight, every time you see these arrows on the notes, projects, and parent content, those are links to other pieces of content that have been structured as part of a table, but which in Notion we call databases. So there's a lot to process, but bear with me. The idea is, let's go back. Oh, let me see what I did with Ben Jones on August the 13th, September the 1st, if you see at the top there. So I'm gonna click on that, and I'll find everything that relates to that episode, including, the titles, the summary for that episode, every metadata, the artwork. And then I can say, okay, what's all the children content? If this is a piece of content, one episode, what are all the pieces of content that relate to this? And so in my system, I have a particular field that you can build easily, and I'll show you how, called children content. And if I click on that, this will essentially open a slice view on top of my content database or table, and will show me all the things that relate to this episode. So although the details here are maybe complicated, and we'll need to do a bunch of lives to really get to understand how to connect this, you should get immediately an intuition for what this is all about. None of the stuff that you see here was built when I started. I started from a blank page, and you can start from a blank page too. But then as you start having needs, as you start bumping against the walls and going like, oh man, if only I could see all of the notes that I took for this particular event in context with the event, that would be so much better, because I don't have to go and search for those notes. I can link them, and once they're linked, I can go backwards. Example is, if you open, for example, the LinkedIn post, what is data literacy? I'm going to open it in a new window. This is again a page, and you'll see from the top that is inside my content database, and it will contain a bunch of text. This is particularly the post that I shared on LinkedIn for that event. You can click on the LinkedIn URL. Again, none of this was designed. I built it as a matter of need. The need comes first, and then you add the feature to support that need. It's not the other way around. So it's the ability for you to add blocks and build a telephone made of Lego blocks like this is amazing, and there's no shortcut to that, because as you use the system, the telephone here representing the system you're saying, and you realize, oh man, there's no earpiece here, it'd be nice to listen to what people are saying when I'm on. Well, then you just do this. You take a piece and you attach it to the existing structure, and now you have a system that is slightly more complicated, but also more useful, because you can actually listen what people are saying, right? And the same is true for your keypad. Oh, there's no keypad. Oh, it'd be nice to have a keypad. Right, you just have to take that new piece of functionality, attach it to your phone, and you're done. You effectively have now, although slightly more complicated system. Now, this all sounds really fun, and you might think, okay, I kind of need a system like that. It'd be nice if I knew how to put these pieces together. Well, the first step to do that is to learn how Lego blocks work, right? That's what we do when we're kids. The first thing we do is figure out, oh, hang on a sec, how is it that am I supposed to do this? Does that work if I do it here? Can I attach it at an angle? Oh, yes, you can. So getting this feeling for how the blocks work is step number one. Once you get that, then we can do way more exciting stuff, that are complicated, but there are also the stuff that I'm excited about, and partly what I'm trying to solve with Data Foundations, which is the consultancy side of what I do, and has to do with managing information and knowledge assets in a way that make people save time, and so they can do more using less energy and stressing less. So back to this example, I wanted to show you the link, right? Everything is linked in the system. So I can click on that link and we'll open, hopefully if LinkedIn saved my post 3 months ago, it would open exactly the post that I shared. So I can go back and see who liked my post, who engaged with it, if I got any interesting comment, and repeat that for every piece of content. But the reason why I'm showing you this is not to show off, is to show you that relations actually go backwards. So they go two ways. Remember we started from the episode with Ben Jones? Well, now we can go back to the episode by using, again, the parent content field. And if I click on that, sure enough, I'll see a snapshot of all the things that have been linked. In this case, only one, namely the content with the episode with Ben Jones. And we're back on square one. So we started from the podcast, high level view. We said we wanted to drill down into what happened with, sorry, wrong episode. My laptop is really slow today. We drilled down on to see what happened with Ben Jones. We opened that particular file. We found a bunch of children contents, answering the question, what did we do in terms of our LinkedIn activity? How did we share that episode? Well, then we found a whole bunch of them. We clicked on the first one, and when we clicked, a new page opened up, the page corresponding to that children content. But now we're not just left stranded somewhere in the system. We can go backwards the same way we came by clicking on the Ben Jones episode, and again we're back on square one. So it's really, really powerful. This idea of connecting things one way and the other is one of the fundamental differences of Notion. The internet is an example, right, of a place full with links. You can go from A to B and reach every corner of the internet with a click. So the idea of linking stuff is not new, but the idea of creating a bidirectional link is actually what you need to avoid losing sanity and to be able to form clusters, group stuff based on where they belong and what's the meaning that you're trying to give to them. Now, again, it's a lot of high level, perhaps philosophical stuff. But this is clearly an example, and I can show you. So in this case, it was a very simple example. We showed the episode and a bunch of children content. So the idea of parent content and children, right? Now, what does it mean in terms of project management? Well, if again, I'm showing you my system, but every system is different. We can go to TDB Doug Laney. This is the episode that was released 3 weeks ago. Same story. There's a bunch of children content, but now there's also a bunch of actions. And you see here, there's a button to show more of this metadata gibberish thing that we don't know yet what it actually means. But if I do click on that, I will see more. And as part of that more, there's actions and all the stuff that we did to make that episode possible. Now, if I scroll down and I show you the same view, the same content in a different way, what I can do is divide my pages into areas. In this case, it's project management, assets, and some internal stuff. So it's mainly, what is it that I need for an episode? I need to manage the project to get it over the line, and I need to manage the assets, all the contents, the notes, the ideas that we use to produce the episode. So if you dive into the project management, what it is yet another section of the page that you can build, same as we built the phone with the telephone with our Lego blocks. But now inside actions, there's a table, and there's a whole bunch of actions that we did, and each action has a date and has metadata, and all of this each action has a done column or not, and the owner, Ren being my podcast assistant, and then there's myself. So we go through action by action. None of this is being imposed by Notion. Notion is the space in which this happens. But the particular look and feel, what you see all of these icons, the eyeballs here, the scissors, the microphone, the red circle, the active, all of this is literally put there by me or Ren or whoever works on the podcast as a result of slow incremental improvements. So I don't want to, often when you see a system, right, someone else's system, it feels overwhelming because you're like, oh my God, I'll never be able to, like, what is this guy talking about? Like, I'll never be able to build a system like this on my own. It looks like either I build a system or I actually get my work done, right? And I disagree. I very much disagree because you don't have to build this all at once. It's something that grows over time, and that's the power of it. To go back just 1 second, the idea, there's a difference between Lego blocks and Notion, and or no code platforms like it, like Coda or a bunch of others. Which, yeah, but by the way, everything we learn here applies to Notion, but the principles can be applied to any other platform. So if instead of having Lego blocks tomorrow, you have I don't know, Lego blocks, the same applies. Once you know how to build a system with these tools and know the principles behind it, then you can you can build any system with any tool. Then it becomes a matter of adapting those principles to the underlying details that govern the new space, but it's a much easier problem to solve than coming up with the principles in the first place. And that's kind of the goal of these lives. I would like to show you the principles, but to get to to understand the principles, first you need to be able to move in the space. And so we'll start from real practical examples now. But what I want to say is that the difference between Lego blocks and building a telephone and building a Notion system or a software is that with Lego, what do? It's mostly recreational. Like we go there, we take a bunch of blocks, we build the thing, and then we, chuck it away. And then next day, we feel like playing with Lego. We start all over again because it's all about creativity and expressing ourselves and exploring what's possible. That has nothing to do with productivity or effectiveness. Right? We're not trying to optimize. We're not actually building a telephone, right? We are building a thing that looks like a telephone that it helps us calm down, fall asleep, or get creative, or whatever it is, the reason why you play with Lego. But it's not to actually build a phone. Now, what's different with these systems is that these are serious. Like you play as if they were Lego blocks. You have the same degree of fun, but ultimately, you're using these things to actually make your life more efficient. And that's a game changer, right? It's a completely different level. And that's what excites me. Because can put blocks together and then chuck it away. But putting blocks together and actually finding something useful, well, that's a different story. And that requires design. It requires iterating on the prototype. It requires to change your mind as you go through. It requires to be opportunistic and not jump to a new feature just for the sake of implementing it because it's cool. Because ultimately, what matters, what you're optimizing for, is how much time does it take me to go from A to B. That's the metric, at least the one that matters to me. Then you're absolutely free to use Notion to play and build amazing, complicated things. And a lot of people do, and there's a bunch of communities you see. Sometimes you see people showing off, going, oh, look at my Notion system. Okay, yeah, but so what? Like, does it help you achieve a tangible goal? Is it making your life slightly easier? Well, if the answer is yes, then I care about it. If the answer is no, it's just fun, right? And that's not what we're here for. What I'm here for is to take these ideas, understand how to apply them to save time and be more efficient and more effective. And next step is to understand the principles that one should follow to build effective and efficient systems, and hopefully transfer that knowledge from the domain of Notion to any domain. in any tech stack. Maybe the last bit is a little bit ambitious, and I get it. It's not gonna be easier, but I really think that it's possible. And so, if you stick with me for long enough, probably you get a chance to see what I mean. I haven't seen a lot of actions in the comments. That's probably because it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and it's raining, and we are very close to Christmas. I get it. I get it, and it's all good. I do want to stress, though, that in the future, I want to make the sessions way more interactive, and I think YouTube is a little bit of a hit and miss, especially when you replay the content. It's hard to engage on a replay, and I think there are platforms that can make that process a lot more fun, and so I'm hopefully I will be able to improve this in January. But I think it's enough with an introduction. I think now you get a sense of what I mean, and we can leave this podcast aside for a moment and actually get to the core of the workshop today. I'll take a sip of water first. Right, so what do we want to achieve today? This is the post I shared yesterday on this live event, and I said we will be looking at Notion relations, databases and views, and layout controls and widgets. Now, if you don't mind, I'm gonna start from the easy one because it's still early in the morning. We'll go from the layout and control and widgets, and then we'll go to databases and views and relations. So we'll kind of flip the order, but we'll hopefully cover everything. So what I want to do straight away, and this is me interacting in Notion, is create a page. There's a couple of ways you can do that in Notion. You can click on plus and then add a page. And this page on title would be page space 1. Now space 1 happens to be inside from Zero2Notion. So if you look at the top, you get a sense of the hierarchy of these pages. So I can click back on from Zero2Notion and find space 1 as a page that I just built. So we can do that again. So delete that and add a new page that way. Or, which is the second way of doing it, which is my preferred one, is / and then start typing what it is that you want to build. So you see that these are called basic blocks at the top: text, page, to-do list, headings, and the list goes on. This is the equivalent of what you find when you open your Lego kit. There are different types of blocks for different things, and so one should start slowly. But the idea is I can just type text, right? Let me see if I can make this slightly bigger. Hopefully that will help you see what's going on. Yeah, I can just type text and call that this is fun. It's just a piece of text. But there is no difference in Notion between a piece of text and any other block. So what is another example of a block? Well, for example, the checklist is, or the to-do list is an example. So task 1, task 2, these are other blocks. What I said is there's fundamentally no difference between these blocks. What do I mean with fundamentally and with difference? Because you might say, well, they look pretty different to me. For starters, I can click and get task 1 done, right? And cross it off, but I can't do that with the text this is fun. So in what sense are they actually the same? Good question. And they are the same because they behave in the system in the same way. So you notice that when I click on this is fun, I get 6 dots there close to the left hand side. The same is true for task 1. If I actually put my mouse on top of the 6 dots, I get the hand, and the hand allows me to drag and move around. So what I can do is move this is fun down, but I can also move task 1 down and make it task 2 first and task 1 second, right? So in that sense, these blocks can be moved in the same way, although they mean different things. But we can go a step further and we can actually move this around along the page. So what if I want to put task 1, then close to task 1, task 2, and then task 3, but horizontally, not vertically? Well, you could do that with, let me first create task 3, right? And put them in order, 1, 2, 3. The way you do that is, and this is true for any block, regardless whether it's a full database or just a to-do list, you can take this and put it on the right hand side of the page, and then you see what I did, right? Like, let me do that again. So I take task 2. This is the most clunky bit in Notion, the one that takes, for no reason, because it's so simple, but unless someone actually shows you how to do it, you get stuck. So I took task 2, I'm still clicking with my mouse, right? And now I want to put it close to task 1. If I do just that, it's not going to work. Notion defaults to the horizontal alignment. If I want to align it vertically, I have to express my intention by moving it on the right hand side or the left, and then lift it up a little, and you see that you get that vertical blue bar. Now if I release, Notion will say, okay, I get what you want to do. You want to put task 1 close to task 2. It's a bit clunky, it's not the best, but once you do that, you can choose the position of task 1, task 2. This is very similar. I don't know if you ever built a website with a website build engine, but it's very similar. It's a drag and drop system. Now put it here, change the width of it, assign more horizontal space to each block. And now I have task 1, task 2, task 3. The same again is true with text. So this is fun. This is really fun. We can put it here and then change the space assigned to it. Again, here we're playing with the bells and whistles. This is not functional stuff. It's more of a layout and how do I get this thing to look pretty type of thing. It's not fundamental architecting the system, but it is part of it. Because remember, the idea ultimately is to use the system and make it useful, right? And so the way that we access content matters. And so layout might feel just like bells and whistles and, you know, pretty stuff, but that it's exactly that pretty stuff that allows you to move faster. So it deserves its place in the system, and that's something that people overlook quite often, especially the engineers using Notion, because they really want to play with the cool, you know, technical stuff, but sometimes it's important to pay attention to how you serve content as well, because if you don't do it well, you will slow down, and you don't have to believe me. You can do your experiments. But okay, so this is in terms of blocks and how to move blocks around. Now, what else can we do to merge these two concepts, the vertical arrangement and the horizontal one? Well, now imagine that we want to take this is fun and we want to put it under task 1. Well, all we have to do, so let me first undo this by taking really fun and putting it down there. Now all I have to do to put this is fun on the task 1 is actually drag it underneath, immediately underneath task 1. And so here you see immediately, let me do it again. You see immediately the relationship, that the logical relationship that there is between these two blocks. We can do the same with task 2 and make that space slightly bigger, right? We can move this one from here to here, right? And now I am perhaps cheating a little bit because I didn't tell you of something that you saw, I'm sure you sensed, but you couldn't explain it, and is this concept. If you look at this workshop, I mean, the sentence underneath task 2, I'll get an horizontal blue line that is continuous. But if I move my hand slightly towards the right hand side, I get a small interruption between in that blue line, you know, a small gap. That has a meaning, and it's telling me that there is an indentation in that relationship. So not only, if I put it here, then I just have task 2 and then my text. But if I put it slightly to the right to get that gap to appear, I'm now saying that this piece of text belongs to task 2. To see what I mean, let's not do that. Let's actually put this text directly underneath. Now, if I want to move task 2 and put it as a full page, so away from this column indentation, the text will stay. Task 2 will not, because I just removed it. So let's do it again. I'm taking task 2 and I'm putting it down here. The text will be bumped up. It won't follow task 2 because it's not in, it doesn't belong to task 2. It's not indented. And in Notion, there's this concept of hierarchies. If something is indented with respect to something else, then it means it belongs to that block. So how can we show that in practice? Well, let's take this, put it there, but this time with a gap. Now it will be indented. Let's give it a little bit of space. Now if I move task 2, it will move everything, task 2 and everything inside. There you go, right? I think these are the basic, really the basic laws in Notion for moving stuff around and taking advantage of the real estate you have. There's probably more stuff, but this is really the fundamental. So let's go through them again and let's change example. So now but before we do that, now I want to take the space and make it a little bit easier to follow for you. So I'm going to create a visual separation between what's at the top and what's at the bottom. The way I do that is with a bit of text. And I'm going to highlight this and change its color. Not the color of the text, which will make the text green, Ctrl Z, but I'm going to change the highlight. So I'm going to say, give it a gray background. Now, background applies to the entire block, not just to the text. So if I click on it, I'll get this nice, neat gray bar that visually separates what's happening at the top with what's happening at the bottom. Now that I did that, now we can do this the same example again, but this time, instead of mixing tasks with text, let's keep the task example. So I'm going to do the same thing we did before, / to-do list. And let's say task 1, or let's say deliverable 1, and then deliverable 2 and deliverable 3. Now each of these will have subtasks. So what I'm doing now is creating some space, tab to indent, that's a shortcut from keyboard, and say task 1, task 2, task 3. Now I did it with tab, with the tab key, but I could have easily just I could have done it with my mouse. So I could say task 1 here, task 1, 2, and task 3, and now take my mouse and do the exact thing we did before. Not this way, not with the continuous blue line, because it wouldn't change a thing, but with the line with the gap. Once you get the gap, you're saying indent task 1 under deliverables, please, and the same with task task 3. Now what just happened there, out of perhaps a quick mistake, but it's instructive as well, is that you can go on and on and on with the indentation, I mean. So you can now indent task 3 as part of task 2 and have another task, 3.2, and this one is, sorry, 2.1 and 2.2. And then I can have a task 2.2.1 and indent that. And what I'm saying is I'm maintaining this hierarchical structure. Very similar to what happens when you open a book and you see the table of contents, right? So nothing fundamentally new, but the idea that Notion respects this indentation. When you indent stuff, you're essentially saying, hey, these two things don't belong in the same plane, so can you please, move them as they were a single piece. And that's very useful. I can move task 2 at the top, and all the stuff belonging to task 2 follows task 2. So kind of neat and useful. But to keep it simple now, let's go back and actually remove this. So you see that we have now task again 1, task 2, and task 3. Here I can select them all and indent with the tab, and all of them will be immediately shifted to the right hand side. It means that belong to deliverable 3. And the same trick we did before. Now if we want to organize this into columns, all we have to do is take the element we want to move, in this case say deliverable 2, and move it to the right hand side, and all of the stuff of deliverable 2 will follow it because they belong to the same block. The same is true for deliverable 3. And so now you have, and now what we have now, let's change the background color here just for visual aid. Let's give it a yellow background here and a green one. What we've done essentially is we did two things. We created 3 elements, the 3 deliverables. We added tasks to them in a specific logical arrangement. We say these tasks belong to the various deliverables. And then we move the deliverables in space and we organize them into 3 different columns, right? Now, nothing stops me from changing my mind and taking this task 3 here and putting it down here. I could always do that. So this flexibility is very useful because it allows you to create, express without writing code, these dependencies, the fact that these tasks belong to something else. So dependencies are really important because it allows us to structure content and make sense of it. But you can also move them around and occupy your space. Now, if you think about it for a second, what you see when you log into any app, it's basically a combination or a glorified version of this, right? Someone decided that there is a logical relationship within things, regardless of what those things are. Someone, namely the developers, decided where those things should be in space and how they should look for you to interact with them in the most meaningful way. So if you strip it down, very fundamental, basic level, those are the ingredients to build an app. Now, obviously there's more to it. This is just the front end. The app also has to consume data and get information to flow, and we'll get there in a moment. But as far as the front end is concerned, Notion already with this very, very simple example shows that you can move things around and decide how they should look and feel. So that's pretty cool. Let me see if we have any engagement on YouTube. Not yet. You're all asleep. That's all fine. Hopefully you get a chance to see this video when you wake up. But that's sort of the things we want to do today. Layout control is done. Now, widgets. There is this website which I never remember. I have to Google, but Notion widgets. The one, I think, is it this guy's? Yeah. Okay. So you can see there's a bunch of examples. I don't know if they changed the terms and conditions here, but do I? No. Okay. It used to be free. Get updates. Okay, let's forget about that for a second because I do have. Maybe I can show you the integration I already did. Instead of showing you my podcast, I'll show you my action zone, which is another page that I arranged with these tricks that I just show you. And inside action zone, there are, we need to zoom out a little bit, I think, for this to work. Yeah, there's a bunch of widgets. So you see the time here, the weather, my not to do list, and a bunch of other stuff that's slightly more complicated at the bottom. But that's the idea of a widget. Like, very similar to the example we just made, right? What's happening here? There's a bunch of text highlighted in purple. The first one has a number of other text elements in a dot sequence, dot, dot, dot. and add the not to do or the don't do list that I want to keep there. Then there's a time section which I created by drag and drop, and then I added this widget, this clock. This is a piece of thing that it's developed by someone else and it's embedded into Notion very simply with the command /embed. You can do that at any time with /embed, and I will prompt you to add the link of the thing you want to embed. And the guys that develop these widgets for Notion give you a whole bunch of links. You can customize, dark background, light background, dynamic coloring, all this stuff. Put the link there and it just magically appears. And all you have to do from a front-end perspective is to adjust the width of this. So you can make it shorter, narrower, or wider, but within the limits of your layout. So first you decide how much space to dedicate to this, and then you can take the clock and you can make it smaller. You can make the widget bigger than the space it is assigned to. So in this case, Notion still has full control of the space. But it's kind of cool. It's telling me it's 10:15 and I have 14 minutes to go before the end of this live. It's also telling me that the weather here sucks because it's raining and it's cold, although it's supposed to be summer. And there you go. That's an example of dark mode and light mode. Some widgets allow you to change the background live without changing the link to the widgets, which is really handy. And I have again a bunch of sections. You already seen this. Now it should look very familiar. At any point in time, you want to create a section, you add a piece of text, change maybe the background, so that creates a visual separation between things, and then you can go crazy and add all your blocks. Okay, cool. So now we can build widgets and we can add notes and we can move them around in space. Is that gonna make us more productive? Not yet. Not yet. So what is it that we need to do? Well, if you remember last time when we talked about building a knowledge management system, we went through 3 elements that were absolutely necessary. And let me pull up my notes real quick. So the 3 tips were: use databases because they're your friends in Notion, separate storage from consumption, and use the Notion clipper. Those are the 3 tips. The 5 steps were structure, relate, capture, organize, and use. Now there's a lot of content, so let's go step by step. I'm not sure if you've seen the first live, but the quick capture example was about using the Notion clipper. What is the Notion clipper? It's something that saves you a lot of time. So for example, let's go to well, I don't know, let's take my podcast again, but I think I already showed you this example. You can go on a page, take the last episode, and then click on this Notion, this N here. That's the clipper, and I think they have it for a bunch of browsers. It's available on mobile as well. So what you do is you click on the clipper, you decide where this content should go. And now if you see, we're using this page called 01 from Zero2Notion. I'm going to copy that link. I'm going to just say to Notion, can you please save this page into, call it whatever you want. Call it episode 21, but put it in this page for me, please. Right, so that's not going to work. And why is it? Well, it's unfortunate I chose this example because I need to explain workspaces to you. So you see that here I have 2 workspaces. One is my Data Foundations workspace, and the other one is the Zero2Notion. Now, the clipper is respects that order and says, I'm going to save stuff to your main workspace, not to any secondary workspace. I'm not sure how you do that for any other workspace, but for the sake of the example, let's remove a bit of complexity. Let's save it to my own workspace. And I'm going to save it, so not this Notion one that I created for this example, but I'm going to save this page in my notes database, or actually my media. These are a bunch of tables in Notion that already exist, and that I created to organize content, and we'll get to those in a moment. But okay, let's say I want to save episode 21 on my MediaDB, save page. Now, if I open this in Notion, what I'll see is the link of the website has been saved immediately as part of just the Notion Clipper did it. It also logged a bunch of metadata, when it was created and when it was edited, and it extracted all the content from the website. So this is a very, very quick and handy tip that you can use. As part of the release of every episode, we put transcripts in there. So if you can't listen to it, you can read, or you can take this and develop more ideas and maybe write a blog post about it. With this Notion Clipper, you can take that text and put it on inside your Notion system and then get back to it. And perhaps, go all the way to the top and assign a piece of action, review episode 21 of the data project, or, maybe link it to a piece of content that you're working on. Maybe it's a blog post on LinkedIn, or maybe it's an entire fully fledged white paper on the importance of data governance and the state in the industry. Whatever it is, right? This is an example with my podcast, but the same applies to any other piece of content. The message here is that the Notion Clipper makes the process of taking content that already exists somewhere in the internet, save it into your Notion space, and being able to then do stuff with that content. Very, very easy without you copy pasting and oh my god, all the formatting. It just happens with a click. That's pretty powerful. So let me delete that because I will otherwise add a bit of clutter to my system. But so we covered that. We covered the quick capture. The second aspect here was the structuring content. So by the way, this Notion Clipper I do all the time, right? At every time during the day on my phone, when I find a LinkedIn post that is cool, when I find a blog post, an article, a video, anything is clippable. If it's on the internet, you can click the clipper and put it somewhere to use it for later. Now, where to put it, that's where the part that we're going to cover now, and that's the most tricky one. Because where should you put it, right? It's nice and easy to capture it, but if you don't have a way to organize content, you can't find it later, or at least you could find it, but you would have to rely on the global search. So you can't really manage it. Maybe you can find it, but managing the work you need to do around that content, very hard to do, unless you have a system. And that's where the structure comes in. So let me make some space here. So we've seen quick capture. Now the structure here, what is it about? Well, I had the tab open already. What? Notion is playing tricks. What's going on? It's still me, Notion. Ah, okay. Sometimes, yeah, it's scary. But anyways, what was it about? Well, we said, how about, what is it that we need to do to manage our knowledge? We need to collect media that we find in the internet. We need perhaps to track the people behind those ideas, because maybe we want to build a network or we want to expand on those ideas. And then we want to track, we want to put labels. We want to say these two topics belong to the same macro topic. The way that I'm proposing we do this is databases. And we touched on databases last time, but they're essentially the equivalent of Excel spreadsheets, except they're on steroids. They are part now of an integrated system of blocks. And so you can use those sheets, those tables to do stuff that helps you save time. Example, the media database, we call it MediaDB, and these three entries, we got it with the clipper, exactly in the same way as I did before with episode 21, except this table is not, this media database does not exist in my own personal workspace. It exists in this Notion, Zero2Notion workspace, so it's going to look different, obviously. But you see immediately that there's a title, There's content that the clipper extracted. In this case is the book by Douglas Laney, Phonomics. There are some fields here at the top, and there's a clear separation in Notion between the fields at the top and whatever it's at the bottom. This concept is actually really powerful, and I think it deserves, it's worth for us to spend 2 minutes to actually understand what's going on. What you're seeing is structured content in the form of text and images, the equivalent of a Word file, blended with structured content, a table with columns with a specific relationship. In Notion, you can have the two. You don't have to choose between a table or a Word file, a spreadsheet or a Word file. You can have a Word file that belongs to a spreadsheet and use the structure that a table gives you to make sense and stuff, and take full advantage of the unstructured form of a Word file to put whatever it's in your mind right now, right? That's super powerful. And that's what's happening. And we did this by simply creating a table / table. And no, that's a new feature in Notion. But we did it. They made now a distinction between tables and databases because sometimes they confuse people. Is there a way the Notion is responding to me today? Yes. So database, table database. The naming is sometimes fun, but now it's called an actual database. It's called a table database, whereas a table is just a table. So the equivalent of a spreadsheet is called now just a regular table. It's a bit confusing, but what I think is worth focusing on is databases or table databases, or things that allow you to organize content and add columns and do stuff with it. And so that's what we want. So we did that / table inline, and the table appeared, and now we added columns with fields until we created the media database. And we did the same with people. We said, well, we're on LinkedIn and there's a bunch of very smart people. Let's track them. Let's see their expertise, their LinkedIn profile, their name. All of this stuff was extracted from LinkedIn with the clipper. And then we said, well, there's also a bunch of topics that we are interested in, as part of our learning. Can we link these three things together? Well, yes. And that's where the relate part comes in. So if we go back to the last bit, we saw quick capture, structure, and relate. Now, if we click on that relate, the idea is that the media topics and people database now should be linked together, so that when you click a piece of media, you know who did it, or who the author was, or who added a comment, whatever. And you also know what topic it belongs to. But if you enter the system from the topics view, say we're talking about data, and you enter data as a topic, then you want to be able to know every person that it's in data, every piece of media you ever collected about data. If you enter the system from the people angle, if you enter from here, you want to know, and you click on Loris, you want to know all the topics that Loris likes to talk about, all the media content that Loris produced around ever, right? Unfiltered. And so this ability, this link is what really makes you save time, because we recall stuff, we remember things in a very different way, depending on the time of the day, depending, who knows how memory actually works. But how do we manage it? We have something unpredictable, what nobody knows, namely our brain. How can we make systems more intuitive and more useful? Well, that's what this linking comes in, because it doesn't really matter if I remember all the episode, or I remember the topic, or I remember the person. As long as I remember one of the three, I can always find what I was looking for, as following the relationships, following those links. And that's really, really powerful. So that's the idea. How we do that? Well, I showed you that these are the same databases as before. They're all only being linked. Fortunately, we're running out of time, and we're not gonna cover linked databases, but it's fine, we'll do it next time. But what I want to leave you with today is the concept of relations. And you see that what I did, let's remove a bit of clutter here. What I did here was essentially say, I have 3 entries in my MediaDB. Who who who's the author for this? So I created a column and I gave it a type select. The type select means that I have I create custom fields and I can decide which one it is. So if we add Elisa, my wife here, as an extra possible field, now Elisa is among the options. Now let's give the actual author for this one, which is Doug Lenny. I could do this, and a lot of people do that, and I see lots of Notion systems that have select properties all over the place. The problem is now that the author is a person, as you know, Doug is a person, I am a person, and I exist in my people database, right? Not in my media. So how do I link them? Okay, so what's the other way? The other way is using relations. So I'm going to create a column and I'm going to say the property type is a relation. I'm going to select which database I want to create a relation with. And in this case, it's going to be the people database. Create. And all I did here, I expressed an intention. I said to Notion, hey, add a column from this table to, in a way that that column is this bidirectional link or tunnel between this database and the people database. What does it mean in practice? Well, it means if we rename this people or person, it means now I can click on that, and instead of creating Loris or Doug from scratch, I can actually click on the entry that corresponds to the author directly from the database that entry belongs to, which is the database here at the bottom. So let me say that again. Instead of creating a new piece of information to express the authorship or the person behind the content, all I can do now is link directly that person to it. So in this case, okay, we're talking about Doug. Okay, perfect. Let's select Doug. You see that is much faster. Like I don't have to recreate. I don't have to spell it again. I have to decide on the color. I literally just have to remember the name. I don't remember the full name. I literally just have to remember the first words. In fact, look at me typing Doug. It doesn't even matter if it's capital because it's not case sensitive. All I remember is the 3 letters and Notion filters. Oh, there is a DOU entry in your people database. It's called Douglas Lenny. Do you want me to link it? Yeah, just link it. Done. Now, what happened here in the people DB is that Notion created automatically a column called related to media, right? Now, I'm going to rename that media because it's easier. And what it did was essentially automatically add the other way in the link, right? So all we had to do is express the that linking along one direction, namely from the media to the person that created that media. And Notion automatically say, okay, you're expressing a connection here. So I assume that you want to go backwards and want to be able to go the other way as well. So I'm going to create automatically a column for you on the linked table, and I give you the option to navigate backwards. So if now we are completely in another space, in another part of the system, and we look at this people database and we click on Doug, we say, the question is, what did Doug do? What do we know about what he did? Oh, right, there's a piece of media that Doug did called Infonomics. And what do we know about it? Oh, it was actually a book that he authored, and this is the link on Amazon. So you can go and find the book, right? That's pretty cool. Now, you can extend this concept one step further and say, what's the topic of that book? Well, okay, we can create a topic database now, just as we did with the people and media. And we can create a column so that every time we add a piece of media, we also categorize that media with the right topic. So I'm going to go with that, do that. Topic already exists. Fine. Okay, so that's because, let me call it topics, and we'll get back in a second why that's the case. So property type relation with the database topics. Again, Notion hasn't created the link yet, but we did prepare the structure for it. We said there's going to be the column called topics that will be linked to the topics database. Now, Infonomics is about, definitely about data, definitely about Infonomics. And now we have these two topics appearing here. And again, if you scroll down and you look at the topics database, Notion did the same. Created a column automatically, linking each individual topic to the piece of media we are categorizing as belonging to data and Infonomics. And what's super cool is that if you come up with a new topic and you say, actually, it's also about strategy. Notion says, well, I haven't found any strategy entry in your topics. Should I create one? And you're like, yeah, I think it's a good idea to create strategy. Automatically adds it, links it to Infonomics, and then when you go back here and you find in your topics database, you'll find the link to Infonomics as well. So now that's pretty cool, but what it gets even more interesting when you add another person or another piece of media to the same topic. Now, say you find episode 20 Infonomics, well, perhaps it's a bit of a boring example, but if you take the Data Project podcast as a whole, then you say, oh, I know who the guest is, that's Loris. Okay, I have two entries for Loris, let me fix that. First of all, we want one Loris only, not two, so I'm gonna delete the first one. And that's, again, very, very subtle here, but what just happened is that Notion, through relations, allowed me to realize that I had a duplication. That in reality, the people database that was supposed to contain unique entries for each person had two instances of Loris. And I realized that because when I was typing, it auto-filtered and I could see two entries. That's actually really powerful. One of the principles of building a data system or a data architecture is to have one truth, one source of truth, right? One version of the truth, not five. So what I just did by deleting a copy or a clone is actually improve the system so that there is less uncertainty and there's more it's more deterministic, right? You can rely on what you're seeing. It's not, there are no multiple versions of the truth. Anyways, a bit of a digression, but let's go back to the data project, and we want to add now the name of the person that is responsible for that. It's Loris. And we say, what does the data project cover? Well, it's about data for sure, data management. We do Infonomics, we do strategy, but we also do change management. So should I add that? Yes, please. We also talk about psychology. Can we add that? Yes. We talk about architecture. Yes. And so you see that as you go through, and by the way, you can visualize this stuff a little bit more human friendly with just that toggle. Again, it's wrap cells. So you find that data project is about a bunch of topics, and now if you go back to the topics database, all of those are now automatically added to the database, so they're all here, and you can link this stuff to multiple things. What's really cool is that if you take now the strategy topic and you open it, you will find two pieces of media: Infonomics, how to monetize, manage the DAG book, and the data project. And as this grows, as you add knowledge, as you meet people, as your network expands, the system becomes more powerful, because one topic today has one media. In a year time, we'll have 250 pieces of media, and it will have 30 or 40 people that talk about that topic. So you see what the power is. That if you now sit down and you say, I actually want to talk, I want to invite someone new, and I want to talk about change management. or strategy. And now the question is, well, who do I know that is an expert on those fields? Well, all I have to do is go on my topic, click about change, well, in this case, change management, and I'll find the media. And the media is the data project. And by clicking on the data project, I find who is responsible for the data project. Oh yeah, Loris is hosting that. And what do I know about Loris? Oh, here's this LinkedIn profile. You can open it and PM him on LinkedIn. Right? It's kind of powerful, right? It's very simple. It's a simple example, but it shows what is possible with the right system. I want to hope that you've seen. Yeah, you've seen it. Okay. For a second, I thought I was broadcasting without sharing my screen. Imagine that. I need to get a little bit better at this, but hopefully over time we will improve it. So let's go back now and wrap this up because we went over time as well. And what did we want to achieve today? We said we wanted to cover layout control and widgets in Notion, and we saw that briefly. I showed you existing widgets, but I showed you the principles, how to embed them, and I showed you how to harness hierarchies and space control to kind of build front ends, quote unquote. I showed you databases and views. I showed you relations and databases. I didn't show you views, and that's what we're gonna cover next time, because it's harnessing views that ultimately give you the ability to focus. Now what we did, we saved time in importing information. We structured it using tables, and that concept of blending the Word file with the spreadsheet and getting the best of both worlds. We linked tables together with that concept of relating and finding links between all of the databases that you build. And finally, what we're missing is now we have this ultra connected, amazing system. How do we get work done, right? And that's where linked views come really in handy, because that together with layout control will give us the ability to just show what we absolutely need to see in a particular context without creating copies. And that's going to be the subject of our third live workshop. Well, I don't know. I hope that this was useful to you. If you have any feedback, do please visit the link that I put in the show note, in the comments. That feeds directly into my Notion system, and will give me an idea of how to improve this in the future. And I hope you're gonna enjoy your Saturday morning. It's rainy. If you have nothing to do, check out Data Project podcast. We have a new episode with Markov Čaček talking about data governance. So if you are into data and you want to learn a little bit more, definitely check it out. And that's it from here. So enjoy your weekend, get ready for Christmas, and don't forget to play with your blocks, and give me a call or get in touch if you have any questions. I'll see you next time.